Welcome into episode 143 of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm August Trometer.
TV party at Ground Zero, La Liga, is listening to your TV, and apps are listening to your taps. Whole lot of listening going on this edition of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. Everything need to be an Internet of Things thing. Samsung took a bit of heat last week. According to a piece from The Verge, Samsung has reminded owners of its smart TVs that they should be regularly scanning for malware using its built-in virus scanning software. Prevent malicious software attacks on your TV by scanning for viruses on your TV every few weeks, a now deleted tweet from the company's U.S. support account read, alongside a video attachment that demonstrated the laborious process. The disappeared tweet read, "Scanning your computer for malware viruses is important to keep it running smoothly. This also is true for your QLED TV if it's connected to Wi-Fi. Prevent malicious software attacks on your TV by scanning for viruses on your TV every few weeks." Then the tweet linked to how to do it. Now, first off, I gotta say, for me, props to Samsung, and you'll not hear those words often from me. Props to Samsung for promoting best computing practices.
I mean, sort of. I mean, they deleted the tweet, so they're not 100% serious about it. I'm really mystified why they did that.
Why they deleted the tweet?
Yeah.
Because they were getting, look, long before I saw this article, I saw a bunch of people being really snarky about the fact that Samsung posted it. I'll tell you honestly, it feels to me like they took heat for doing the right thing in this particular case, because people then said, oh, look at that, Samsung TVs are full of viruses. I mean, ignoring the fact that Internet of Things are each a potential, troublesome vector, let's say.
Troublesome is exactly the right word. And to be honest, attackers are going to go after the thing that people have the most of. That's why Windows have in the past always been kind of the target. But now the more and more people have Macs are a target. But when it comes to your TV, it's basically Samsung or Panasonic or some off-brand, and no one's targeting the off-brands. They're going to target Samsung.
I disagree. Vizio got in real trouble back in 2015 for exactly this, except Vizio never came out and said, hey, you know what you should be doing? Vizio just said, I mean, they were just like off being quiet someplace else. Wow, did that happen to our TVs? That's really terrible that somebody else did that to our TVs. I don't know. Like I said before, I'm not one to say props to Samsung, but the amount of heat that they took online for saying you should be careful with these devices, honestly, it struck me as fairly short-sighted from the people who they were looking for laughs more. They were looking for, real security.
Sure. But I still think Samsung should just build it in and scan regularly for the person. There shouldn't be a process you go through to have to scan your TV for viruses.
So Samsung wants you to scan their TVs. If you're curious what some of the dangers might be if you did not, The Verge says back in 2017, WikiLeaks revealed that the CIA had developed a piece of software called Weeping Angel that was capable of turning Samsung's smart TVs into a listening device. Less than a month later, a security researcher found 40 zero-day vulnerabilities in Samsung's smart TV operating system, Tizen. At the time, Samsung released a blog post detailing the security features of its TVs, which includes its ability to detect malicious code on both its platform and application levels. Two things. First, the report says it's unclear whether Samsung's most recent post was in response to a newer security threat or whether it was just Samsung being proactive. And second, The Verge wonders if Samsung can detect malicious code on both its platform and application levels, and running a virus scan is something users can do by tunneling down through the several menus on the TV. Why doesn't Samsung have the TV do this automatically, which you mentioned a moment ago?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I will say Weeping Angel is such a great name, and I want to be on the team at the CIA who gets to name these things because it sounds like a Doctor Who villain. But I know this sounds cynical, but the only thing I can think of is that so Samsung can sell you a new TV. Beyond that, I really have no idea why, especially because a TV will know whether it's networked or not. There's no reason I could think of that it couldn't download updates in the background and just install them when you shut the TV off.
Well, let's play it out for a second. If Apple sold you an iPad that constantly scanned itself and made changes without your wanting to, without your, saying it's okay for that to do, would you be okay with that? I mean, is there a chance that Samsung's not doing it because people might hack their TVs, or it might slow down their TVs, or they might be accused of installing something that people didn't ask for? I mean, is there that kind of reason? Maybe,
but even on your Mac, it'll throw up a message saying that, there's an update available, or it used to, and now you can set it for automatic download. And so, even that is possible. I just don't know why they're not, why that stuff's not built into the OS.
I'll tell you, the more I listen to this, the more I feel like I sound like a Samsung apologist. I will end this particular segment, I think, still being happy that Samsung did what it did, because Vizio has been caught in this stuff before, and I don't remember Vizio ever having said this kind of thing, or any other TV maker. It felt like Samsung in this case fell victim to snark, rather than, falling victim to having actually done anything wrong. Because here's the thing. The Verge used the rest of its article to argue against buying a smart TV. Though the last time I bought a TV, which was about 2.5 years ago now, there weren't a lot of options. I mean, you could buy a smart TV, or you could buy a cheaper smart TV. And maybe if I'd been willing to spend a few $1,000s on like a, 8K, whatever, the highest end television at the time, it's possible that wouldn't have been a smart TV. But I mean, then you're talking about spending thousands of dollars. For most people, when they go to buy a television, unless they're real, video files, they're looking for as big a television as they can get for as little money as they want to spend. And if it has all the smart stuff and they don't even intend to use the smart stuff, they'll just think, well, I'm not going to use that stuff anyway. Or maybe they will. I don't know. I guess the question I have, assuming a smart TV is the only option or the most economical option, is there a way to use that safely?
Well, as we've said before here, anything connected to the internet is a potential target. So one, you could buy a smart TV and just never connect it to your network. Or two, if it does have virus scanning software, make sure you run that regularly and keep the OS on the device up to date as well.
I'm wondering also if third-party solutions might be a way to go. And I'm thinking specifically about a PlayStation, an Xbox, an Apple TV, something along those lines.
Those are definitely options. Keep in mind that TVs themselves, the things that Samsung sells you, those are very low profit margin items because the prices have been just squashed so badly. So these companies are using other ways to make money off of them, like selling app space on, kind of the app dashboard, or selling the data of what you watch. We've talked about that here before. Making sure the TVs don't have that information is definitely in your best interests. My smart TV isn't connected to the internet, but I use an Apple TV to feed it shows and music and that kind of thing. And yes, I'm trusting the Apple TV, or that or some app isn't spying on me, but I have more faith in that because I have automatic updates turned on, and Apple is regularly just grilled on virus stuff and secrecy and all of that. I don't know enough about PlayStation and Xbox as TV clients, but I would expect those to stay up to date with software as well, simply because those companies have a vested interest in those devices being up to date.
Weird stories of phones listening to us in a moment, but first, a word about MacScan 3 from Secure Mac. You heard the good people at Samsung. Yes, that's right. For the duration of this show, I will call them the good people at Samsung. You heard the good people at Samsung say it. Scanning your computer for malware viruses is important to keep it running smoothly. I'm pretty sure they meant malware and viruses, but still. What I love about that tweet is that they're accepting as fact what a lot of people, especially a lot of Mac people, refuse to believe. That they need to run a good defense against viruses and malware. Well, they do, and MacScan 3 can be that defense. MacScan 3 detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your Mac. And it's developed by Secure Mac, trusted names in computer security and developers of exceptional security software for the Mac for well over a decade. Try MacScan 3 today for free. Sign up for your free 30-day trial at securemac.com/MacScan. That's MacScan 3 by Secure Mac. Your 30-day free trial is waiting at securemac.com/MacScan. Regular listeners to this show will wonder why that happened so early. We're doing things a bit out of order today. Although these two stories do kind of go together. We all want to be heard on our phones, but do we want our phones listening? It was nearly a year ago that the checklist brought you the story of a Spanish football league. We call it soccer. We brought you the story of a Spanish football league using its Android app to listen in when people were out. La Liga was the name of the league. It was concerned about illegal broadcast of its matches, which it said costed over $170 million a year, translating, they say, into direct damage for clubs, operators, and fans, among others. So, La Liga asked fans to let the league's app access the microphone and GPS on a user's Android phone so it could listen in to hear whether a game is playing in a venue and match that info up with whether that broadcast was legal or illegal. Now, my feeling at the time was that they were doing a lot of things right. They were explicitly asking for permission. They were only activating the functionality when league games were being played. They were converting the audio into binary code so it would be recognizable digitally, though not listenable. They were anonymizing the retrieved data. They were asking users occasionally to reconfirm their consent, and they were making it possible to revoke consent at any time. And with all of those steps taken, people were not happy. According to last year's piece from Naked Security, 1-star reviews were popping up in Google Play Store, accusing the app of spying on users' locations with the intention of ratting out establishments that La Liga thought were broadcasting without a license. Now, I'm curious, sir, your take on this story as presented so far.
Whether they asked for permission or not, I still feel like it's a bit skeezy. They literally turned their fan base into narcs in order to make more money. And none of that money went to the people actually helping them track that stuff down. So, yeah, kind of skeezy. And, as we talked about here before, people often opt into things without reading the details just to be able to continue and do the thing they launched the app for. So did these people really understand what permission they were giving and why? I'm sure some did, but I'd bet most didn't.
So about a year later, the courts have weighed in. The Bitdefender site Hot for Security says courts have hit La Liga with a fine of 250,000 euros, or approximately $280,000 US, after its official Android app was found to be sneakily listening to people's surroundings when soccer matches were being played. It's unclear from this story whether La Liga only fessed up after GDPR went into effect across Europe, or the courts found it was just, too creepy for words. The courts have hit La Liga with GDPR fines because, in effect, as the Bitdefender site puts it, millions of football fans were recruited into an army of spies for the Spanish Soccer League, helping it crack down on piracy. Now, we'll say Europe does not play. All those steps I mentioned earlier, here in the States, Amazon smart speakers will, grab an errant conversation and send it to your friend, and they don't even get a slap on the wrist. La Liga asked for permission, then they ask for permission again, and they still get a bill for $250,000.
Whether you like GDPR or not, you got to say at least the powers that be overseas are trying to look out for the citizenry. I'm not sure we'd ever get enough momentum here for something like that, but I try to be optimistic, especially with some of the legislation I keep hearing about in Congress and in some states.
I will say, too, I was saying earlier that, Europe doesn't play, but $250,000, not really a lot for allegedly violating the privacy of millions of people. I mean, is this really just a slap on the wrist?
Well, I think Europe plays. They just don't play for much.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be it.
I think it's out of proportion with what they did, but perhaps the courts looked at the permission aspect of it because they were asking for permission, and you got to give them a lot of credit for that, and gave them a break on the fine. In any case, they probably make that in beer sales on a single game day.
I got to say, I don't know who I am in this episode because I'm all about Samsung last segment. And if La Liga really did ask permission and then ask permission again and did ask permission again, I mean, at some point you kind of have to put it on the citizenry. I mean, and I understand what you said about a lot of people may have given this permission without knowing what they were giving permission for. All the one-star reviews that started turning up immediately when they started asking for permission indicates to me that a lot of people did understand exactly what they were doing and chose not to do it and still chose to hit them with a one-star review. But, what's $250,000 between soccer teams, I guess. Even if this is just a slap on the wrist, La Liga, not surprisingly, does not like it. The league says it asked people not once but twice whether it could turn on the mic before actually turning it on. They consider the ruling unfair, and they are launching an appeal, according to the report. From a, some say, sneaky soccer league listening in to a crazy bit of eavesdropping. You'll miss La Liga when we're done with this story. Business Insider had a piece recently on a scary hack that could accurately guess a user's password by listening to the sound of their fingers tapping on the phone screen. According to the report, malware can be designed to take advantage of the microphones in handheld devices to compromise their users' passwords and PINs. Researchers at the University of Cambridge in England and Sweden's, well, let's just say a university in Sweden, reported in a recent paper. It's not that I don't want to say the name, it's that I can't. Now, it's not foolproof, but it's not bad. I mean, it is bad, but it's relatively accurate. According to the report, when people tap on the screens of their smartphones and tablets, they generate sound waves. Most contemporary handheld devices have multiple microphones that they use for voice calls, recording voice memos, and more. The researchers use the device's microphones to detect the sound waves generated by passcode taps by tracking which microphone heard the sound first, a difference that could be measured in fractions of a second. The software they created could make educated guesses about where on the screen the sound originated, allowing it to predict which key a user tapped.
And I would go so far as to saying that, tapping near the edge has an absolutely different sound than tapping in the middle as well. So they probably use some of that.
The system they created was able to correctly guess a 4-digit passcode 73% of the time after 10 tries in one test. In another test, it was able to identify 30% of passwords ranging from 7 to 13 characters in length after 20 tries. Now, the good news is best practices will keep you safe, starting with what, Mr. Trometer?
Well, I will say this is a spooky bit of technology because now I can't even type. But there are some things that you can do to keep in mind here. One, just be careful what you download and install. Stick to App Store apps. They've been reviewed, and I know that's not 100% foolproof, but it's a whole lot better than getting something from the Wild West. If you're running some sort of sketchy app using MDM or enterprise deployment like we've talked about here before, something like porn or gambling apps, just stop. You don't know what else those apps do. Neither does Google or Apple, and those apps could be doing a lot more than just grabbing your passwords. Number 3, it's going to take me a long time to get used to this because I've never done this before. But the new keyboard coming out in iOS uses the swiping method instead of tapping to generate words. Until those password sniffers can figure those swiping sounds out, it's probably a safer way to type than tapping. There's some other things. This is just all common sense. Don't jailbreak, please. Just don't. We asked a few months back for people to send us a legitimate reason to jailbreak, unless they were a researcher, and no one messaged us. So I stand by my opinion that there's just no good reason for it. Don't sign up for anything that makes you install an MDM profile or certificate unless it's from the company you work for and they give the phone to you. And really, learn from the Liga story. If you're using an updated OS, apps will ask you if they can use the microphone. Make sure to read why they need that access and think hard before saying okay.
Honestly, too, this sounds like a serious argument for using Face ID or Touch ID instead of passwords. And using Keychain and iCloud, or using biometric authentication from LastPass or 1Password instead of that horribly loud tapping that you've been doing, putting in your password.
Absolutely to all of those things. One of the things I love so much about iOS is the lengths Apple has gone to so that I don't have to type passwords. It just works. And if used correctly, they're strong and unique and all the things a growing boy needs in his daily digital diet.
Oh, see, August isn't just looking out for you old timers. Hey, if you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. Did I say you old timers? I meant us.
Yes.
Go to securemac.com/checklist to find notes for this show, for the last show, for all the shows coming up. There's one place for all of it, securemac.com/checklist. If you have a question you'd like to ask or a topic you'd like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. The address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. And we'll talk to you next week.